Well, with everything changing all around us, what steps should you be taking? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, if you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. At the website, you'll find a lot of resources, especially the Ask Prudent Money. And through that resource, you can send an email with a question, comment, whatever's on your mind, and we will get you an answer back. So it's a good way to get information, and that's what it's there for, to help you out and to point you in the right direction. So once again, the Ask Prudent Money link at the very top of the page at prudentmoney.com. Also, make sure that you sign up for the Prudent Money e-letter list, and that way we can keep you posted at what you need to know and when we're sending things out. We've had a very unusual January, and so the consistency of posting the podcast and consistency of things we just normally do has been off by a mile. And I could tell you all the reasons why, but I won't bore you with it. Hopefully, though, we've done the best we can. We're cycling out of that situation. And of course, the ice never helps anything, and all that came with the wonderful weather we've experienced. But I think we're on the upswing, so things will start to get back to normal. That's all at the website prudentmoney.com. I wanted to mention something to you. I just happened to stumble across this article, and it's about and not saying they're guilty, just telling you what the article says. And of course, this is very well known of what's going on with Rocket Mortgage. But a coalition of home buyers has filed a class action lawsuit against Rocket companies and affiliated entities, including Rocket Mortgage, Amrock Holdings, and Rocket Homes Real Estate, allegedly illegal practices that steered borrowers into disadvantageous, that's a big word, mortgages and inflated home buying costs. The complaint was filed January 26, 2026 in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Michigan by plaintiffs represented by consumer protection firm Hagens Berman. The suit claims that Rocket and the affiliates engaged in a systematic scheme to steer home buyers toward Rocket Mortgage's financing products, even when other lenders could have offered more favorable terms. You know what's interesting about this, and I think that there's several takeaways from this particular situation, and it also takes me back to during the financial crisis. During the financial crisis, leading up to it, the market formed a very, very large bubble in prices, and then the bubble burst, the market came down over 50%, and you know the rest of the story. But along the way, there were various forms of fraud discovered and exposed. And this is what ends up happening when you have a big boom. And of course, it surprises me that we haven't seen more of this from the real estate industry. But when you have a big boom like the real estate industry has gone through, of course, that's kind of come and gone. And in the real estate markets are kind of in a standstill at this point. But nonetheless, it still doesn't surprise me we're seeing it. You'll come across these situations where the accusation of fraud comes about and people get sued and all kinds of things happen. Because it's like when things are booming and they're going good, nobody's paying attention. And if somebody wants to commit fraud, not saying that Rocket Mortgage did commit fraud, just saying when someone does commit fraud, it usually gets swept under the rug and nobody pays attention to it. And this is why, and I'll speak for myself, going through the mortgage process, it's confusing. There's a lot to it. It's a very detailed type of process you have to go through. There's a lot of emotion that's involved. And I think the emotion aspect of it is what gets people in trouble. Just like the fraud that was uncovered in '08. In fact, Bernie Madoff's empire, which was all a fraud, came tumbling down on him in, I think, 2009. But a lot of emotion and greed and is all in that particular situation. So the lesson to be learned from here, and Mark Pfeiffer says that every time he comes on the program, he has a saying, I can't remember it now, but basically know who you're dealing with and make sure that you can trust without question who you're dealing with. And that is the big thing that is important to know, is important to understand, that you've got to have somebody that you trust. And it doesn't hurt to go to a couple of different lenders and get numbers, because it's really the great thing about a mortgage, and Mark will tell you this, is that it's just it's black and white. It's numbers. You don't unless you have something to compare them to, you can't see if you're getting a good deal or not. But it is just numbers, and the numbers tell the entire story. So the bottom line is, make sure you don't go it alone. If you don't have maybe someone that you fully trust, bring somebody that you do trust and look over the numbers with you, and make sure that you're not paying too much money when it comes right down to it. I've seen, in 30 plus years, I've seen too many times where people will question something, but you know what? We're at the closing table, don't want to rock the boat, and want to make sure that all this gets taken care of. So, having said all that, just be careful. This is Bob Brooks saying you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate it. Well, I want to share something with you. I was throughout the day, throughout the weeks, I collect content, collect information, collect stories of interest, collect articles about what's happening with the market, where the market is, what certain indicators thought. I mean, my day is full of content, and what I'm doing with that content is I break it down to potentially content I want to write about, content I want to talk to you about, stories I think you should be aware of, just like the one I just talked about then, and make sure you're informed. And the other use for all the content is to get an idea for my money management as to where I think the market's going. And what just is unbelievable to me, for the past, 14 months since President Trump has been elected, I mean, you can almost double that content. And it's just trying to keep up. And this is just for me, and I've been doing this for a long time, is a big task. And I got to thinking earlier that this has got to be, even if you are trying this at home, and I think a lot of people don't, they kind of give up on trying to keep up on what's happening. But it's got to be the most frustrating thing, because it's frustrating for me, trying to keep up with everything that's happening. And especially in the age of a process where Donald Trump can sit down and sign an executive order into existence. Nothing, doesn't have to go to Congress, it boggles my mind. And so one thing I would encourage you to do, besides finding some news sites that you can glance over on a day-to-day basis just to get the gist of what's going on, is watch U.S. News and World Tonight. I think it's on at 5:30. They give a little bit of clip of everything major that happened that day, and it's a good resource. But and if you want any good resources, send me an email, and I will send you back some resources that I think are good and free, by the way, and you can check out. But I go through these all this content to stay connected, and I think that the worst part of it is you're going through this, you're reading about it, and you just stop and you go, that just doesn't add up. I had someone send me an article yesterday, actually for something that I didn't realize had happened. So I'm always grateful for that, because it's to say that I get to all of it, it would be not true. Is he put in his note to me, he said, I don't completely understand what this all means, but I'm going to have to research it. Fortunately, I was able to tell him what it all meant. It's very, very fascinating, and I may even talk about it a little bit today. But the bottom line is, it's even more frustrating when you don't know what it means and trying to figure it all out. And then you've got probably the worst of all of this is the question of what is true, what is not true, what is mostly true, but it's not true, but or all of it's true. And then you got the spin, and you've got the one thing that you see a lot of is, focus on my right hand, but don't pay attention to what my left hand's doing. A lot of this is just politics, but political agenda and looking at both sides of the story is completely out of control. I mean, it's fascinating to me if you take a step back and realize some of the most horrific situations that are happening right now. And there's just a political spin on them. And that's where we come from, unfortunately. But what do you do with all that? And we're talking about unprecedented situations that are happening, and how do you interpret them? We're going to talk a little bit about that and why it's important to take these two steps. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Stick around. We will be right back. Hello, this is Bob Brooks. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 are the exact same verse word for word. I call them the stewardship verses of risk. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we teach about risk, how to identify it, how to figure it out, and what to do about it. We believe that to be a prudent steward, you have to be a good risk manager. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show on Bible School Radio 91.3. Prudent Money, home of the modern-day steward movement.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you got a question for me, go to the website, www.prudentmoney.com. There is a link at the top of the page that says Ask Prudent Money. Just go ahead and send that in. We'll get you taken care of. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. So we're talking about what do you do with all of the content and the news and the different opinions and the emotions. I mean, how do you process all that and do it to where you stay in step with what is going on? Because I think it's important to be informed for a number of reasons, especially from a stewardship standpoint. But, the worst part of it is so much of it doesn't make sense. And so much of it is, you wonder, is orchestrated. Who knows? I mean, who knows? And all you can do is watch and try to get an idea of what's going on. But, we live in a little bit of an unprecedented age of events taking place where we're blowing up boats, striking other countries. ICE, not going to touch that one. Do we have an unemployment situation or do we not have an unemployment situation? Do we have an economic situation? For a long time there, last year, it was looking as if the economy was on its way down, and all of a sudden it's okay again. I don't know. They typically doesn't work that way, but who am I to say? Inflation. Yes, we've got inflation. Yes, it is very prominent, but doesn't seem to be that big of a deal, at least in the news media and where politicians are concerned. It does appear to be a problem for Fed Chair Jerome Powell, which there's really nothing to add to his story as we've been keeping up with that. But he did not lower interest rates yesterday, so obviously he thinks that it's a little too soon to be doing anything. And then we have our eyes peeled on the real estate markets. When are they going to get unstuck? And I was just thinking about this a second ago, is that it's such an unusual situation. You would think that the real estate markets have fallen off a cliff. That has not happened, or that you would see it look more like it was in 2008, which is not the case at all. Very odd. But I guess that's a good thing, because if you could just get interest rates down, maybe you can get things started back up again. And of course, interest rates are remember, we talk about this is one of the most important aspects of this whole story, getting them down. And it seems like every attempt that has been made to get those interest rates down, they will not seem to come down. So, and then finally, debt. Debt is taking its toll. And some of these stories about debt just stand on their own, and not good stories, not good stories at all. We're talking the student loan crisis. I think it is one. I don't know. Do you agree or disagree? Credit cards just continue to keep climbing. And the most disturbing part of that story is the credit card interest rates. Those definitely haven't been coming down. They are extremely high, a lot higher than I think they should be. And you got all this going on. What do you do with all this information? Well, I think it's important that you continue to try to stay plugged in and try to stay aware of what's going on, and take that time on a daily basis to do that. I do believe that is important. Probably, though, the most important thing you can do is take a step back and remember that prayer is where it starts and ends, and really pray about it. And pray about how your own stewardship and your own relationship with stewardship and God, and where all that is, and what you're doing to push that to the number one spot in your life. I think we get, and I'm as guilty as this as anybody, is that we just get to a point where we get so overwhelmed with information, we don't take a step back and go, okay, God, what do you want me to do with this? How do you want me to process this? Then start just thanking Him for everything, and the prayer of gratitude, because we do live in a country where we may not like seeing everything that's going on, but we are living in a country we should have a lot of gratitude for, but it's about the effect of stewardship and your own stewardship. What can you change and refocus on and do a different way? Your stewardship and your relationship with God. And I believe we all have that, and it's an important relationship of that stewardship with God. That is the relationship that says, God, you're first, money is second or below, and I go wherever you lead me. But here's the one thing that I truly believe in. And if you keep that, the first thing, the main thing, everything else falls in place. The stress starts to go away. You start to see things a lot clearer. I'm not saying all the emotion that goes along with some of the things that are happening and some of the things you witness, it just automatically goes away. But I think God affords us the ability to put it into perspective. And then there is all the things that you're quote unquote supposed to do. As you read opinion pieces on the internet, different news sites about, I'll give you a great example because I'm getting a lot of questions about this, about gold. Should I be buying gold? You really have to get a level of education on this particular subject before you start making decisions. I believe to start with to put gold in there. The price of gold has definitely been explosive. I mean, it's gone up. It looks like it's heading into a bubble as well, the way that it's taken off. But there's some tips to keep in mind, and if you're thinking about putting your money to work in gold. And the first one is what is its purpose in your portfolio? It's interesting to me because what most people do when it comes to gold is the reason for it is a safety thing and a protection type investment to protect your assets. I mean, that's what the persona of gold is taken on. When in reality, if you go back and you research the price of gold, very volatile if you can't handle volatile, you need to think twice about putting money into it. And there's some risky aspects of it. There's some big moves up and down. Not necessarily a safety net, just like I wouldn't call bonds a safety net. Gold doesn't necessarily do anything. And the value of gold is based on interpretation. Investing, I don't agree with investing into gold because investors think it's going to be a currency. I don't think it's going to be a currency. And so we'll see what happens with it. The first set of reasons I gave you were because of protection, because of a hedge. But just know that because it can come down as fast as it went up. Now there's some things that are supporting gold. A weaker dollar. Our dollar is getting crushed against all the other currencies in the world marketplace. That's been happening lately. That benefits gold. And it's a geopolitical thing. If there's a lot of risk from a geopolitical standpoint, gold tends to go up in price. There are a couple of ways that, just to make sure that you know this, that you can buy gold. Of course, everybody's familiar with physical gold and buying in gold bars, coins, that kind of thing. And you got to be extremely careful who you buy it from. And but there's also what's called an ETF, an exchange traded fund, and you can buy that like you'd buy a stock. The ETF, and its ticker symbol, if you want to look it up, is, and I'm not giving this as advice, it's purely for educational purposes, is GLD, and you look that up and see, you can actually buy. You're not buying physical gold, but you're buying a proxy for gold, an investment that follows the price of gold. Will it do that forever, lockstep? I can't tell you that it'll do it. That's what it's supposed to do, and that's what it has done. But remember the rules of diversification: 10 to 15% and no more in a portfolio. Where I see people, and of course the commercials of the gold bugs. That's what they used to call them anyway, will promote putting 100% of your IRA into physical gold. I think that is the most irresponsible advice that can be given. personal opinion, but that's just the way I feel about it. So, use some rules. Remember, it can be a very emotional buy. Thinking it's going to go up 50, 60, 70%, whatever, and you kind of get lost in that. But just be careful and know why you're investing into it. And I've asked this question plenty of times, but people have asked me why, and I'll say, why do you want to invest in gold? They want to invest in gold because it's going up, it's making a lot of money. You want to keep the emotion out of it and have good reasons why you think it makes sense. That doesn't mean that what your reasons may be versus my reasons may be different, but have a little bit of an idea of why you're doing it. But to wrap it up, the answer always comes back to stewardship and that important relationship that you have of stewardship with God, the most important thing. And that's where you start. That's where all this gets its clarity from. So keep that in mind. This is Bob Brooks. You got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.